Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate 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 Vasudevaya.
Yasvanubhavam akhilam shrutisaramekam adhyatmadipam atititirshataং tamondham samsarinam karunaya purana guhyam tam vyasasunam upayami gurung muninam. Så hvad gør vi nu så? Hvad er standard?
Vi læser bare, oversættelsen af prabhu og gentage.
Okay.
Vi slutter senest 10 minutter over det sådan. Wow.
Ja, hvad er klokken nu? Jeg kan ikke se uret.
Den er kvart i. Skal du have mit lån, mit ord?
Ja, det er meget fint. Srimad Bhagavatam, første canto. In English, huh?
Yes, please.
Yes. Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 2, text 3. Text 3. Translation. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto him, Shuka, the spiritual master of all sages, the son of Vyasadeva, who, out of his great compassion for those gross materialists who struggle to cross over the darkest regions of material existence, spoke this Purana, supplement to the Vedas, the cream of Vedic knowledge, after having personally assimilated it by experience. Translation. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto him, Shuka, the spiritual master of all sages, the son of Vyasadeva, who, out of his great compassion for those gross materialists who struggle to cross over the darkest regions of material existence, spoke this Purana, supplement to the Vedas, the cream of Vedic knowledge, after having personally assimilated it by experience. Purport. In this prayer, Srila Sutta Goswami practically summarizes the complete introduction of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the natural supplementary commentary on the Vedanta Sutras. The Vedanta Sutras, or the Brahma Sutras, were compiled by Vyasadeva with a view to presenting just the cream of Vedic knowledge, Srimad Bhagavatam. The Vedanta Sutras, or the Brahma Sutras, were compiled by Vyasadeva with a view to presenting just the cream of Vedic knowledge. Srimad Bhagavatam is the natural commentary on this cream. Srila Sukadeva Goswami was a thoroughly realized master of the Vedanta Sutra, and consequently he also personally realized the commentary, Srimad Bhagavatam. And just to show his boundless mercy upon bewildered materialistic men who want to cross completely over nescience, he recited for the first time this confidential knowledge. There is no point in arguing that a materialistic man can be happy. Yes, Srila Prabhupada also says that if you think you are happy, you are an animal. So nowadays it's very common to say, I'm happy. Everyone wants to feel that they're happy and tell others that they are very happy. But actually that means, by definition, you are an animal. Yes. So there is no point in arguing that a materialistic man can be happy. No materialistic creature, be he the great Brahma or an insignificant ant, can be happy. So that verse, Brahma bhuvana loka punaravartin arjuna mamupecha to kauntya punarjanmana vidyate. From the highest planet, Brahma Loka, down to the lowest planets, everywhere in the universe, they are all places of miseries wherein repeated birth and death takes place. And then Krishna says, but one who comes to my abode, he never takes birth again. So this, for a sane person, the concept of having to take birth again is everyone tries to make a permanent plan for happiness. That's natural. We are Satchidananda. So we are Sat, so that's why we fasten our seat belts. Okay, Prabhupada said, Krishna is my seat belt. Once in San Francisco, he was driving to that, what's that called, that place? Morning Star, or Morning Ranch or something. He gathered a lot of foods from there, a lot of how do you say, some army soldiers for his great Sankirtan army. You know, Madhudvisha was there, he called him the Emperor of Kirtan. I think Vishnu Jan also, the King of Kirtan. Tamar was also there, he was great instrumental. So many. So this is a great preacher, he goes to any extent. The people there, some of them were naked, we know, and they thought it was very natural. It was actually very highly elevated to be like this, without nothing. So, yes, so we are Sat, we are eternal, so it's natural that we want a permanent, because we belong to a permanent place, the spiritual world, and we are full of knowledge, so everyone is seeking for knowledge, information. It's very natural. When someone knows a lot, we are attracted, and Ananda is the highest. We are always looking for pleasure. So yes, he was going, Prabhupada, in someone's car. It was like not a very nice car, and the driver was saying, fasten your seatbelt, and Prabhupada said, Krishna is my seatbelt. But we are not so elevated, perhaps, that Krishna speaks directly to us. He speaks, but we are not listening. Alright, so everyone tries to make a permanent plan for happiness, but everyone is baffled by the laws of material nature. Therefore, the materialistic world is called the darkest region of God's creation. So the whole total creation is, like Prabhupada often mentions, that it's just like the material world is like the jail, so it also belongs to the government. And here the superintendent of jail is Maya Devi. So she has a thankless task here. So, but everything is the creation of the Supreme. We cannot escape. So, but Krishna gives us mercifully the illusion of here in the material world to be separate from Him. Yet, the unhappy materialists can get out of it simply by desiring to get out. And that's also the Vedic aphorism, the Vedic call. How is it? Tamasima Jyotirgama. Don't stay in this darkness. Go to the light. Jyotir, Gama, go there. Tamasima. Ma means stressed. Don't stay. Unfortunately, they are so foolish that they do not want to escape. Prabhupada often said, ignorance is bliss when we try to preach, but it's our duty to go. And like, we don't want to go, we are lazy, or we think it's useless, why should we go? Because they don't want to hear. But Prabhupada says it's our duty to make, they don't understand the value of it. They don't think they're suffering, they think they're happy, I'm fine, you're good, I'm grand, I'm good, I'm fine. That's what they always say when you try to approach them, trying to give them Krishna. So, but Prabhupada says it's our duty to make them understand their suffering. So with ignorance is bliss, and it's folly to be wise where ignorance is bliss. It's folly to be wise where ignorance is bliss. It's a cry in the wilderness, Srila Prabhupada says. Like, it's so hopeless to go and save these fallen souls who are, what's it called? They are just so sincere about wanting to enjoy the material world and live separately from Krishna. So, but still we're going. Actually, we don't care. Jare, how is it? Jare dekhe tare ka Krishna upadesh. Jare dekhe means to see. Huh? Whoever you see, jare dekhe tare ka Krishna upadesh. You tell them about Krishna. So it's not. It's not about. We are doing our duty as the servants of Krishna to go and tell them about Krishna, and we are actually not attached to the result. Of course, it's nice if, Srila Prabhupada said preaching means you come some new family members, like that you into Krishna's fold. That's how he phrases it. That means we should also, when they come, take nicely care of them. All right. Yes, so it's our folly. It's a cry in the wilderness, but still, and it's folly to be wise where ignorance is bliss. But we go and preach, because we are followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And what an example Srila Prabhupada says as the Sena Patibhakta. All right. Therefore, they are compared. All right. So now we are going to hear about the materialists, how they are like. Well. Svavitvaraha Ustra Karai. There are four kinds. Sva, it's the dog, and then Vitvaraha, Varaha. There's the stool-eating hog, and then Svavitvaraha Ustra. Ustra is the camel, and then Karai, the ass, the donkey. Svavitvaraha Ustra Karai, Sangstuta Purusha Pasuhu. So this is also. Is Jiva Goswami. So these are animal type of how we can see that people are not humans but actually animals. Athato Brahma Jigyasa, human life starts by inquiring into what is the purpose of life. Who am I? Do I have some kind of purpose and something I'm meant to do? What's the supreme happiness? Why am I suffering? Why do I have to lose those that I have invested all my time in my life? One day at the time of death. So those who are like dog, hogs, camels, and asses, they worship also these types of people, and those who are then worshipped must be then even bigger dogs, hogs, camels, and asses. So these are different kind of materialistic men. So they do not want to escape these materialistic men. Generally in the material world, no one wants to escape. Alright, therefore they are compared to the camel who relishes thorny twigs, because he likes the taste of the twigs mixed with blood. He does not realize that it is his own blood and that his tongue is being cut by the thorns. Similarly to the materialist, his own blood is as sweet as honey, and although he is always harassed by his own material creations, he does not wish to escape. Such materialists are called karmis. Yes, so this is sex life, which is the Maitunya Agara. Maitunya means sex life, and Agara means the chain. The chain of sex life, and which binds one to this material world. It's the Maya's, like we don't need the prison bars because there is this Maitunya Agara. So that's compared with the camel, and we can just go through them. Then the dog is the one who takes an education, or it doesn't, but he may have also a high education in university with big honorary degrees, PhD, MAD, this and that. But actually it is an education to becoming a good dog. And also Prabhupada called this materialistic education, like slaughterhouses. So yes, so the dog, Sva, he may have a very high degree, but actually after he has his long education of maybe even 20 years, he has to go and wave his tail before a master, or he may go, this master will kick him out and say, no, we have others, there's no room for you here. So he has to go to so many masters, knock on the door and wave his tail and say, oh, can I serve you? I have a big degree here. Look. And then he will be kicked away. And ultimately he will be also kicked out when the master doesn't like him anymore. And, well, often it happens. This is Kali Yuga. So then the Vidvaraha is the stool-eating pig. So it eats anything. We know in China. That's why Prabhupada says that's why they're the lowest. They can eat anything and everything, a dog even. So, but everywhere now, all over the world, we see how even the cow is being killed. So they eat anything as long as it tastes good. And often people we hear here in Denmark, they brag about how they have eaten different things. The more things they have eaten, they feel they're more special. They've tasted different things. So it's very we should experience the joy of life.
Next thing is insects all over the world. They want us to eat them.
So, and then we just heard about the Ustra. Prabhupada once in Vrindavan, they were walking on the morning walk, and then Prabhupada suddenly started laughing because he saw the camel, and he said, oh, this is just, and he was eating the thorny twigs, and oh, this is just like our grihastas, he was saying. So, yeah, and also it's because in Ayurveda the semen is the blood that gives life, vitality. So when we waste it, that is not good. That also Srila Prabhupada speaks about in the lecture. And then the last, the donkey. Yeah. So he works very hard for the washerman, but and that's also we see all over the world, working so hard. Going to early in the morning, 2 hours to go for the work, and 2 hours back sitting in traffic, and being a donkey and a dog. So a lot of work, and then you come back, and the wife is maybe not even happy, and you get a little bread and then sleep, and maybe some sex life, but a lot of work. So just with the donkey, there's the carrot in front of some grass, and then it works very hard. And Prabhupada says there's grass everywhere. Actually, we don't. But the foolish donkey. So these are the four. This is mentioned in Bhagavatam later on, in the second canto. All right. So such materialists are called karmis. Out of hundreds of thousands of karmis, only a few may feel tired of material engagement and desire to get out of the labyrinth. Such intelligent persons are called jnanis. So we know that they inquire what is the purpose of life. They will take to philosophy, like that. Well, some of course they're just philosophizing. They take some philosophy course, or they study philosophy in the modern university just for time passing. But that is not, of course, real philosophy. The Vedanta Sutra is directed to such jnanis. But Srila Vyasadeva, being the incarnation of the Supreme Lord, could foresee the misuse of the Vedanta Sutra by unscrupulous men, and therefore he personally supplemented the Vedanta Sutra with the Bhagavata Purana. It is clearly said that this Bhagavatam is the original commentary on the Brahma Sutras. Srila Vyasadeva also instructed the Bhagavatam to his own son, Srila Shukadeva Goswami, who was already at the liberated stage of transcendence. Srila Sukadeva realized it personally and then explained it. By the mercy of Srila Sukadeva, the Bhagavata Vedanta Sutra is available for all those sincere souls who want to get out of material existence. Srimad Bhagavatam is the one unrivaled commentary on Vedanta Sutra. Shripad Shankaracharya intentionally did not touch it because he knew that it would be difficult for him to surpass the natural commentary. He wrote his Shariraka Bhashya, and his so-called followers deprecated the Bhagavatam as some new presentation. Deprecated means like you belittle or you don't accept the authority of it. So his so-called followers, Shankaracharya's so-called followers, deprecated the Bhagavatam as some new presentation. Like they say that, oh, it was written by Vyopadeva, and it is not 5,000 years ago. Just like some of these who are so-called followers of Shankaracharya, they say that, oh, Bhagavad Gita, so many sects, right? But oh, Bhagavad Gita is not written by Vyasadeva, one part is written by this. So there's so many speculations. The whole purpose is to somehow avoid Krishna and the conclusion, the real conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, because the conclusion is also bitter for conditioned souls. But that is the bitter medicine which a sincere soul will take to experience the highest, the Paramananda, the three kinds of happiness. Srila Rupa Goswami explains. There's the material happiness, and then there is the happiness in the Brahmananda, and then there is the Paramananda, which is in loving exchanges with Krishna in the five rasas and the five primary rasas and the 7 secondary rasas. All these exchanges with Krishna, which gives the highest enjoyment, exchanges of love. One should not be misled by such propaganda directed against the Bhagavatam by the Mayavadi school. Srila Prabhupada says in the Vedic, in India, there are two schools, the impersonalists and the personalists. So we are in the personalist school. Yeah. From this introductory shloka, the beginning student should know that Srimad Bhagavatam is the only transcendental literature meant for those who are paramahamsas and completely freed from the material disease called malice. The Mayavadis are envious of the personality of Godhead despite Shripad Shankaracharya's admission that Narayana, the personality of Godhead, is above the material creation. So that's why Prabhupada called them the so-called followers of Shankaracharya, because also Shankaracharya has mentioned that ultimately Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is beyond the material creation. And he also gives this famous Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam. Oh, you're so much, how you say, word jugglery, and that's what they often do. The Mayavadis, they don't have any taste, they don't have the rasa with Krishna, so they start going into the etymology and studying the meaning of different words, and instead of taking it from the pure acharyas, of giving the meaning of the words, so they want to, so, and then they just enjoy that. Yeah, there is an enjoyment in that. So, in this analyzing things. So, but Shankaracharya says, you are just a mudha. What will that help you when your throat is, you cannot, at the time of death, when you're lying there, what will that help you, that grammar? Just bhaja govindam, bhaja govindam, bhaja govindam, 3 times he mentions. So it's very much emphasis. We know, those who are familiar with Vedic culture, 3 times, so it's very emphatic. The Mayavadis are envious of the personality of Godhead, despite Sripad Shankaracharya's admission that Narayana, the personality of Godhead, is above the material creation. The envious Mayavadi cannot have access to the Bhagavatam, but those who are really anxious to get out of this material existence may take shelter of this Bhagavatam, because it is uttered by the liberated Srila Shukadeva Goswami. It is the transcendental torchlight by which one can see perfectly the transcendental absolute truth realized as Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. It is the transcendental torchlight by which one can see perfectly the transcendental absolute truth realized as Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. So in the same Bhagavat Purana, Srimad Bhagavatam, there it's everything explained. This is chapter 2, so in chapter 4, 5 and 6 we will hear about Vyasadev's meeting with his spiritual master Narada Muni, and the whole history of the compilation of the Vedas, because the Veda is one. Ultimately it's coming from the spiritual world, at the same time it's eternal. So the Veda is one. So, but Vyasadeva did this great job to compile it into 4, or divide it into 4, and preserve it for the future, because he knew of the coming of Kali Yuga. Vyasadeva is a realized soul, and he is Trikalagya. So, with the help of his disciples, he wrote all these Vedas down, and in Bharat, the land of piety and dharma, so it's a huge area. India is big, and it was much bigger then. And all over the temples they had a tradition, a very complex tradition, how to preserve this knowledge. So yes. So then he was not satisfied after compiling everything, and then Narada Muni came, and so then he made the Vedanta Sutra, and then the commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. That is Vyasadev's own commentary. So we know that so often Prabhupada would mention that. He would give the example, just like if an author has written a book, then he only knows the real meaning of the book. He has written it, so he knows the deeper meanings of the book. So he can give the perfect commentary. So Vyasadeva, he wrote the Vedanta Sutra, which is the essence of all Vedas. It's like a code. Sutra means code. Brahma means knowledge, the supreme knowledge. So it's very much very much condensed. So one has to be very advanced to understand what is actually written there. But the conclusion is bhakti. Only Shankaracharya, takes out the impersonal view. But actually the conclusion is bhakti. So that we see in the Srimad Bhagavatam, because the author himself, Vyasadeva, wrote the Srimad Bhagavatam. And the conclusion we find in the 10th canto. Yes, so this torchlight. Krishnesva dharma pakate dharma jnana dibhisaha kalav nasta, to destroy, kalav nasta trisham esha pura narko dhuno ditaha. So this Bhagavat Purana is as brilliant as the sun, and you already had this verse, or it's coming later. Oh, it's coming in the next chapter. This Bhagavata Purana is as brilliant as the sun, and it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. And so that's the first part of this verse. And how is it? Then it says that
Person who have lost this knowledge,
yeah, those who have how is it?
shall get light from this
Yeah,
Purana.
yes. So those who have lost this
Their vision.
the vision due to the dense darkness of the age of Kali shall get light from this Purana. So this is the Bhagavad Purana is the light for this age. And that's why we are absorbed in it, or we're supposed to study it. Now this I want to speak a little bit about the Mayavad school. So and Vedanta Sutra here. That is when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu he appeared. Then that was 500 years ago approximately. Then this was India was people were very learned actually, relatively, and Vedanta Sutra had a high position. Like the Vedas were very much respected, and the Shankarites, or the followers of Shankaracharya, they like the Vedanta Sutra was the final proof, you can say, in any philosophical debate, and still it is. But like I just mentioned, Srimad Bhagavatam is how we understand Vedanta Sutra. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself, he came and he showed by his example that we should study this Srimad Bhagavatam, and that's the life of the devotees. They whenever they meet, so they come together and they discuss Krishna katha, and they find so much pleasure in that and enjoyment. So these verses, and also the torchlight, that's also there. Yeah, so from the Gita. So then when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was becoming, of course it was all a pastime, but when he became a devotee and surrendered unto Ishvara Puri, then his guru gave him this mantra, the Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And so he started chanting it, and immediately he experienced so many transcendental emotions. And he said, "What is wrong with me?" Well, actually, it was very good. His guru, Ishvara Puri, said that. He said to him, "Murkha tumi tumara naika Vedanta adhikar. Krishna mantra japa sada, a mantra sar." He said, "Oh, you are a fool. Murkha means a fool. Tumi, you, Murkha tumi tumara naika Vedanta adhikar. You have no adhikar for studying Vedanta." And then he says, "Krishna mantra japa sada, always chant the Krishna mantra. A mantra sar, which is the essence of all Vedas." So this reading of Srimad Bhagavatam means we come to the Sankirtan, Sankirtan movement, the chanting of the holy names. Not that we just only study Srimad Bhagavatam. So, and then also at the same time, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning that there are a class of people called Sahajas, and they say, "Oh, we don't need to chant, study Vedanta then, we just chant then." But that is also not correct. That is also not that is not correct. We, as a sincere devotee of Krishna, should study the Vedanta, and we are studying Vedanta by reading its commentary, Srimad Bhagavatam. So, which we hear here is the cream of all Vedic knowledge. It is also called the Paramahansa Samhita. We hear here it's for the Paramahansas, and that is why it's called the Paramahansa Samhita. It is called the Amala Purana, and it is called the Mahopanishad also. So different names for Bhagavatam. That's also those who want to study the who are Gyanis and so on. But actually the Srimad Bhagavatam is the Mahopanishad, so why not study that? So yes. And there's just something I thought I wanted to mention. Okay, alright, I better stop here. We have time for some comments or questions, or maybe not.
That's up to you. Okay, so I'd just like to hear, thank you very much for the lecture. You mentioned one interesting point about in the different temples they preserve the Vedic knowledge.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't get lost. So how would they preserve that
Yeah,
knowledge?
they have some way they chant the mantras backwards also.
Okay, so at that time it was only oral, the oral tradition.
Yeah, oral. Of course, it's also written down. But there was also, like I mentioned, that Vyasadeva could foresee this, so there had to be, like he had Ganesh engaged in writing a transcribe of the whole Mahabharata.
Right.
So it was written down and it was preserved all over, but it was written on palm leaves, so it had to be. So, but it was also preserved orally as a double, you know. And there they had like very advanced. First of all, they had very sharp memory because these, we can say, priests or spiritual personalities, they were trained from. There was a culture of brahmanas, right? That's why the Brahmana class is so dear to Krishna, because they preserve the eternal knowledge for the lost souls to go back to him. So yes, they had some system where they could chant, they would memorize sections of, and some would memorize other sections of the Vedas. So there would be groups of Brahmanas chanting together, like, you know, Sankirtan. And then they will remember the shlokas, and then they will have different techniques to remember it from the backwards, and some where they would remember like 1, 4, 8, like they would have some, not the first syllable or word, I think syllable, I guess, I'm not sure the exact details, but then they will have some kind of like in mathematics, they'll remember number 1, 4, 8, and then, you know, so many complex ways, so they could never forget the verses, because it was just like, yeah. And still in South India, there are Brahmanas who are still doing this, and they can remember huge sections of the Vedas and chant them, you know, in so many ways they have put the words together. I don't know how to, I think you get the idea.
Okay, thank you.
No. All right. Thank you for listening. Srimad Bhagavatam ki,
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki,
Jai.
Gaura Premanande.
Hari Mo.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Namo Om Vishnu.